What makes a prairie girl so excited that she does that? Why, not one, but 3 ancient coins. But not just coins with a very interesting rock involved. This stone was said to have been cast down from the heavens by Zeus. In 2 of the 3 coins I have, Apollo is seen seated upon the Navel Stone, often referred to as the Omphalos stone. In the 3rd of the 3 coins that I have, Apollo can be seen standing next to the Navel Stone. These coins are more than just relics. They're a window into a world where mythology and reality are inseparable. In order to try to understand these coins, we have to travel back to 200 BC to Delphi, one of the most sacred sites in the ancient world. Delphi was regarded as the center of the world by the ancient Greeks. It was home to the famous Oracle of Delphi, whose prophecies shaped the fate of kings and nations alike. But Delphi wasn't just a place of prophecy. It was also considered to be the literal navel of the earth, the center of the world. And at the heart of Delphi stood the Omphalos, or the Navel Stone, which carries with it a tale steeped in divine myth. Legend tells us that the Omphalos was no ordinary stone. It was placed at Delphi by Zeus himself, and its origins are nothing short of celestial. Zeus, the king of all gods, decided to find the center of the earth. He sent 2 eagles flying in opposite directions, one to the east and the other to the west. They flew across the world and met at the point where the earth's balance was most perfect. Where the 2 eagles met at Delphi, Zeus took a large stone and hurled it down from the heavens, marking Delphi as the center of the world, the cosmic navel, or Omphalos. The navel stone that Zeus cast from the heavens became the symbol of Delphi's power. It signified Delphi's role as the most sacred place in all of Greece. And it's here, on this very stone, that Apollo is depicted on the ancient coin. Apollo, the son of Zeus, the god of prophecy, truth, and light, is shown calmly seated atop the navel stone. The connection between Apollo and Delphi is inseparable, as he was the god to whom the Oracle of Delphi was dedicated. His presence atop the Omphalos reinforces his role as the god who oversees prophecy and truth, with Delphi being his most sacred ground. The stone thrown from the heavens by Zeus served as a constant reminder that Delphi was the divine center of the earth, where the god's influence was most direct. The stone wasn't just a geographical marker. It was seen as a direct link between heaven and earth. The gods, led by Zeus, had chosen this very spot to place their mark on the world. In a way, every coin minted in Delphi with Apollo on the navel stone reinforced that this place was the very axis of the universe. While many Greeks featured their gods and symbols on their coins, Delphi's choice to portray Apollo seated upon the navel stone set them apart. It emphasized the sacred nature of Delphi and its unique status in the Greek world. The coin wasn't just a piece of currency, it was a vehicle for divine propaganda. The coin's depiction of Apollo atop the navel stone tells us directly that they believed that this was a sacred spot and was truly the center of the cosmos, a divine axis placed by Zeus himself. So, what do you think? Is Apollo perched atop a meteorite? Did the ancient Greeks worship a meteorite? There are lots of examples throughout history where meteorites are only recorded in oral history. And to us nowadays, that can sound a little bit mythical because they didn't have the words in the science to describe what was happening. They often used, descriptive things that made sense to them, such as the heavens opened up and there was a great fire and a thunder, or, fiery stones rained down from the sky. That sounds fantastical and mythical to us now, but they just didn't have the word. They couldn't say, a meteorite fell. They didn't know that that was a meteorite, right? So, and then in another example of meteorites that go back way, way back are iron meteorites that have been turned into tools, knives and jewelry and things like that, and buried with the likes of pharaohs. We may not have an origin story, not even an oral origin story as to how they found these rocks and decided that they were important. And much like the Navel Stone and Apollo, we cannot go back and ask them why they chose their rock, or if this oral tradition is meant to imply a meteorite. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. So it could truly be any combination of these circumstances could accurately describe the Navel Stone, the story of the Navel Stone and Apollo, but you can't know for sure. And it's hard not to put our own interpretation on things when these stories are so old. So I don't think that's exactly what's happening here. I know I told you a story that really emphasized the idea that Zeus threw this stone from the heavens. However, unlike some of the other oral traditions and single stones that have been found buried with people and things like that, unlike those one-of examples where they're literally one-of, this is not exactly a one-of stone. There are several stones that are believed to be the navel of the universe and the earth, the Omphalos. I probably am saying that wrong, by the way. Omphalos, I'm not sure. There are several other stones in several other places that have slightly different stories, but they're all believed to mark the center of the universe. So I've shared this story with you through artist interpretations of what this place may have looked like in its day, and I've also shared with you what the ruins look like at this archaeological site. But I do think it's unfair for me to leave you to make your decision about this without presenting to you all of the information, including the museum and the stone that is housed inside the museum and believed to have been the original Umphala or Navel Stone. This is the Navel Stone that Apollo is seated upon. No, wait a minute. This is the rock that Apollo sat on, right? So which one is it? This one or this one? It's both. The one outside is placed to mark the place that the one inside used to sit. When you look at the Umphala stone, it's a beautiful stone. It's ornately carved. And when you look at it, you think, well, that is definitely not a meteorite. But in much the same way that we have placed a stone outside in the, old monument to represent what and where the Umphala stone would have sat, how do we know that that wasn't their interpretation of the Umphala stone that was celebrated and stuff? So placed here to mark where the original stone was. Also placed here to mark where the original stone was. The original stone. It still is not proof that Apollo wasn't, and the legend and everything about this coin wasn't actually referring to a meteorite. But as of now, there is no actual meteorite that's associated with it or any of the other navel stones, handful of navel stones and their stories. But people made pilgrimages to them then and still do today. These are my people. So these navel stones, they are obviously important to the people. Again, we can't ask them how they chose them or what exactly the significance was to them. I mean, we can make a lot of educated guesses and things from the history and things like coins that they made to represent this story. And maybe they knew that the navel stones that they had were not meteorites or are not meteorites. Maybe they were just meant to represent a meteorite and represent the power of their gods or of Zeus. Either way, to me, an entire civilization that made voyages to see a stone that was placed into a cart or a carriage and adorned with flowers and ribbons and hoisted into the air and paraded down the streets in celebrations simply designed to celebrate it. An entire town that was and still is housing a rock that has been worshipped and visited by people, pilgrimages of people for over 2,000 years. That's a darn impressive rock. And even if it's not a meteorite, it sure has made an impact. But I'm sorry. Is Apollo sitting on a meteorite? I'll let you be the judge of that. However, And in country terms, if Zeus, the god of all gods, threw that stone from the heavens, then enough said for a country girl. I'm going to put it in my collection. It's at the very least a very interesting rock. And as a rockhound, a meteorite collector, and a coin collector, it's a home run. It hits all three of those interesting things to me. And whether you're a coin collector, rockhound, or maybe even considering being a meteorite collector, I bet you this story was at least a little bit interesting. I'm glad that you joined me today on our trip back to ancient Greece and our look at Apollo and the Navel Stone. What an interesting little coin. What a great big story it has to tell. Thanks again so much, guys. If you liked today's episode and you enjoyed this interesting topic, don't forget to hit the like button. Also, I have memberships for 99 cents a month. That's super affordable, and I have a merch store. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And remember, in this great big world full of mythology and gods and meteorites and rocks and coins and great big stories, where you can choose to be anything, choose to be kind of a rockhound.